Duke Nukem Forever. So yeah, this is Duke Nukem Forever. We're on Xbox Series X. Just so you know, we have to use the 1080p feed, so we can't really show the full scape of it because the Xbox Series X, well, the Xbox DVR in general, does not support Duke Nukem. That's right, it's disabled, so you can't actually record directly off the Xbox. So we got to use the retro sort of card. It does support auto HDR, which kind of looks interesting because I did check this out with the regular Xbox in order to try to play it, but I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot. You can't film it on there. So this is kind of interesting. I mean, we do get a little bit of a res boost on this one's original quality. It's still, quite rough around the edges in terms of the visuals. It's very jaggedy around certain elements of it. But yeah, it's interesting, this being Duke Nukem Forever. The game literally took forever to release. And when it didn't really get the best of receptions, needless to say. It definitely did not go over well with people, but it's still, you know what, honestly, I found it kind of fun to play. You really couldn't get away with making a game like this today, at least I don't think you could. Uh, just the humor, the style of humor in it, the setup of the game, I don't necessarily think it's something that you could really do these days, and that's a little bit sad, because I'd actually really like to see what a modern Duke Nukem could be like. They might actually have some fun with it and doing something a little bit weird. But yeah, it's interesting. The story is like, okay. It's got some interesting missions. I like the humor of it. It's kind of really crudely done and sort of funny, and it's a weird sort of game. There's a multiplayer component too, but you can't play it because there's nobody that plays it, so yeah, there's not really bots or anything that I saw either. So that's kind of just like a dead mode. But yeah, the idea of this game is interesting because it's the, I guess, combination of well over a decade of development and different studios and teams that kind of did work on this one, and then it kind of released, and I think it's fair to say it kind of killed Duke Nukem. Well, we did see him come back in Bulletstorm, which is absolutely hilarious. If you get the chance to play Bulletstorm with Duke Nukem in it, definitely do so, because it is just absolutely hilarious. Am I not supposed to be getting ammo drops here? What is going on? No, I think it's over here. But, yeah, Duke Nukem in Bulletstorm is just an absolute riot. I find that so funny the whole way through. It's just an absolutely wild time. But, yeah, it's neat playing Duke Nukem Forever. I actually sat there, actually it must have been a few years now at this point, and I played through the game, like the entirety of it, for the first time, because I had played it in like bits prior, and I was like, you know what, it's okay. The platforming is awful. That's for sure. Like, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And some of the other sequences aren't really great, and it seems like a weird mismatch at times, but, it's not perhaps as worse as people think it is, just in the sense that if you have low expectations going in, it's fine. Like, I think a lot of it is people thinking that it's going to be something amazing, and they really thought it would live up to the years that it was kind of sitting there. But if you think it's just like a generic sort of meh, whatever shooter, just an interesting, easygoing, well, not interesting, but an easygoing story, just with like weird action, over the top stuff, you might actually kind of enjoy it as just being like a stupid kind of shooter that you can check out. I think that might be fun for some people. And it's really, I'm not saying that it's like an incredible title. I'm not saying it's amazing. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying it's maybe, okay, you know? Duke Nukem Forever. So here's another level. I thought we'd switch it up and go to somewhere a little bit more regular when it comes to the level setup. Keeping in mind that the other place there was just the opening for the game. But yeah, it does load a little bit faster on the Series X. It still takes a bit of time though, which is odd because, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that demanding of an experience, but Oh, here's a really good reference right here.
Dude, we've got your green power armor over here and ready to go.
Power armor is for pussies.
Because that's the Master Chief armor. So it's kind of just I don't know. I find it a little funny, but yeah, this is kind of one of the level setups, just like a generic regular level, so you can see it in action. You know, it's very linear. You're doing your different setups. Sometimes you're like driving things. Most of the time you're blasting stuff. There's like a slight, you know, style of like destruction to the environment, and it's actually kind of a little bit difficult at times too. Like we're playing on normal, there's different difficulty options, but I do find myself kind of dying, and I'm like, whoa, a little bit surprised, because you're like, huh, I didn't think I would die there. It's just kind of interesting, but yeah, just kind of enemies that you mulch through, very much a shooter of this era. Not really anything that makes it stand out too much, I suppose you could say, from the other releases that happened over this time period. It does have a decent sort of like open world style to it, and I want to highlight the interactivity that this game has, because I think that actually should really be quite praised. They should have been working on other parts of the game, needless to say, but you can like interact with the toilets, the sinks, lots of little things in the environment, and I think for the time that this came out in, I think that's really quite cool that you were able to do that. And I want to reiterate again, visually, what you're seeing is the like 1080p super sampled feed of the game, just due to the fact that, you know, I wasn't able to use the Xbox DVR to record it in its full beauty. So that kind of also leads to the point that I would like to get like a better capture card at some point, and I'm still debating on that or not. Oh wow, I forgot this was this long of a shooting gallery segment. Jeez, yeah. Kind of going on and on here. Lots of creatures you gotta blow up and stuff. Ridiculous. But yeah, you know, you get a decent amount of weapons, you get the Duke Vision, and then you can like crush back drinks. That was one fun part though, and I wish actually maybe I would have played that level. But I think this is a good showcase of a regular level in the game. But there's like this talk show level where it's more casual and you kind of get to interact with things, and it's kind of just like a fun little story setup, and you know, they got the twins in there and everything, and it's interesting. Like, I'm not trying to make this sound like it's some glorious game that was, like, misunderstood or something like that. I hope that's not what people are getting out of this. But I'm just saying the fact that if you've ever been curious about it, it might actually be worth a whirl just to kind of see how it is. Like, it's not unplayable by any degree, it's just not great. It's very, very okay, I suppose you could say. Very alright of a shooter, because I played a lot of titles from this era, and this one is kind of just like, eh. But seriously, like things like this, you know, I find that kind of interactivity for that period of time in gaming to be quite fascinating, because there wasn't, you know, a whole lot of titles that were doing that sort of thing, and I always thought that that was kind of a little bit fascinating, at least to me, you know. But yeah, it's good. It's quite jagged around the edges, pretty low res. The backdrops, though, pretty good sense of scale, especially some of the ones. Like, you get to one where you're like on the top of a tower in like a burger place, and you can really see the sense of like scale and distance in the backdrop. So I always thought that was interesting, because you're kind of in a Vegas area. But yeah, on my most recent TV, it's even more like a little rougher than it used to be, but still kind of like softened up a little bit too, I suppose you could say. It's an interesting title, and you know, that's really what Duke Nukem is, right? It's the combination of years of people, you know, different developers kind of leaving their mark on this one, and this is just kind of what we ended up with, a bunch of random levels that don't necessarily flow together perfectly well, and incredibly awkward, I guess you could say, platforming sequences, like weird mini nuke stuff. And I think, I don't know, if you were to do Duke Nukem today, I think you'd have to completely from the ground up revitalize and re-look at what Duke Nukem is as a character. I think that's the only way you could really modernize him. Unless you wanted to do a character that was out of touch kind of perspective for a story, that might be neat. But I hope you kind of enjoyed this look at Duke Nukem, got an idea of Duke Nukem Forever, and just really what the game is and kind of how it's playing. Like, I mean, it's very smooth nowadays, you know, performance-wise, and It's mostly like the rough edges and stuff. They're like, eh. And the really gray and brown type of color palette that was used here. But that was very popular for the games at that point in time. You know, it's just kind of how they went. Oh, wow, that guy actually just, like, completely blew apart there. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, that's about sums it up now for Duke Nukem Forever. And I hope you got an idea of everything running in action. This was a decent, I guess, showcase of what this is. I was hoping this would blow up and look all cool in my finale.